buy everybody beers at Schultz and Dooley's 3:30, so we gotta get out of here. So we'll call the meeting to order and we'll go around the room and give introductions and we'll start by everybody beers at Schultz and Dooley's.
Feedback.
Yeah, we've got his credit card down there on pad right now. Andy.
Andy Thomason, Sustainability Transit.
City of Alabama.
Scott Bachman, City of Springfield.
Andrew Filey, City of Republic.
Sarah Fields, OTO.
Brett Foster, Public Works, City of Springfield.
Frankie Norwood.
Jeremy Parsons, City of Ozark. Jeff Purcell, City of Nixon.
Adam Humphrey, Green County Highway.
Kirsty Ketchum, Green County Highway.
Mark Webb, Green County Highway.
Natasha Longford, OTO.
Dave Fawcett, OTO. David Cloud, OTO.
Debbie Parks, OTO.
All right, we're gonna,
Jared Taylor, Congressman Eric Burlington. Mike Uster, Senator Smith's office.
Mike Martinez, will see the company.
Cliff Spangler, City of Ozark.
Nathan Adams, Director of Design.
Derek Selto, Associate representing Ozark Special Road District.
Kyle Estes, Permanent Gassy Station.
all right, well, thank you, everybody. Oh, it's me.
Jen Thomas with OTO.
All right, next we're gonna approve the minutes. So I need a motion to approve the last meeting's minutes from December 17th.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, one for the minutes.
Did you get it, Jim?
Oh, I didn't do the agenda. We approved the minutes first, so we got out of order on the agenda. So we need to move to approve the agenda for today. Is that right? See how much I pay attention at the start of these.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We'll move forward with today's agenda since we already approved the minutes. So, any public comment today from anyone on anything? Anybody online, anybody in the audience have any public comments for today's meeting? Buddy? Last call, okay. We're gonna move on to Sarah's Executive Director's report.
Hello. So, focused on a lot of things around here and some of it we'll go through on the agenda, but one thing, of course, we have our eye on is reauthorization for the transportation bill. The LOT Coalition, which is a coalition of regional agencies, MPOs, cities and counties, released some draft language for the bill and they call it the Basics Act. And basically it proposes that we move more money from discretionary grant programs to formula programs, but specifically formula programs such as the STBG, we get the carbon reduction program, protect, safety and bridge. So allocations to regions like ours for all of those areas, including safety and bridge. So that would be new. It was drafted with a Republican and a Democrat and that proposal's been made. I don't know if it'll gain any traction or not, but we're looking at that. It also proposes a 2.5 times or 2.5% funds for planning for MPO planning across the nation. And right now we get less than 1%. So that would be a change too. So we're just, again, keeping our eye on that. The bill expires September 30th. So we do have a long history of continuing resolutions. So the transportation bill rarely has been passed on time. And so we'll just kind of keep our eyes out. I think the big takeaway is if money is moved from discretionary programs to formula, we just need to be ready with projects and try to get that money spent as soon as possible because it will be a 5-year bill and we will have some time restriction. State Highway MM, our #1 priority, is still restricted by the governor. So really no new news on that $6 million that we have asked for. And we're working with area legislators to try to get the $6 million in this next year's budget as well, and maybe find some other options. The 60-65 study we're working on, we're expecting to issue notice to proceed in the next few weeks. And the first thing I want to focus on with that is the public input process, figuring out how to get all the interested parties on board and informed and participating. And again, we're hoping to wrap that up by the end of 2026. We're also working on our long range transportation plan. We are required by law to update that every 5 years. We've been focused on the bike ped plan as well as the major thoroughfare plan and design standards. Most of you probably came to that last meeting where you see there's quite a few changes proposed. And so just working through all of that and hopeful that we'll have a final draft ready for approval in the fall. So I encourage you to continue participating. Let us know if you see any issues, especially from those of you who do this stuff every day. STIP priorities, as you know, we met yesterday and we have another meeting scheduled for February 24th. Probably the takeaway going into the next STIP programming cycle is that there's a lot of asset management projects that need to be funded to get just some resurfacing of our roads, and that's real cyclical. So we're just in that cycle. So there's not going to be, it looks like, any money probably for new projects to be added to this next 5 years. Again, I'm hopeful that with the new transportation bill that might change over time. Other than that, Natasha and Debbie are going up to the MoDOT planning partner meeting, and hopefully we'll gain some insight into what's going on in the world of transportation from MoDOT's end. So that's all I have.
Any questions or comments for Sarah? Sounds like. All right, we're gonna move to our legislative reports. I didn't know if Mike or Jared have any update for us.
Yeah, just real quick from the senator's office, I know that, plenty going on right now, but as far as probably of interest to the group, the surface transportation bill, like Sarah was talking about there, is gonna be up this year. The senator, they're waist deep on that right now, getting into it, with some of the stuff that I've seen, but I know that his focus is gonna be a lot on, stability, predictability, kind of maintaining existing programs without furthering the deficit if at all possible. So you're talking about a lot of things like regulatory reform, permitting reform, I think inconsistent agency guidance, things along that nature, trying to some of the duplicative nature of some of the grant programs and what's requested of groups that are going after that. A lot of those details remain to be worked out, but that's kind of where we're at on that right now. So happy to answer any questions.
Questions or turn over to Jared?
Sure. So I don't have much to say today. I've been focused on Army Corps of Engineers. We've got a lot of stuff going down at Table Rock. They've got a couple public meetings on the WRDA 2024 that the congressman passed last year. And so if you haven't been paying attention, there's encroachments down at the lake. There's several hundred of them with landowners in the Corps. And the congressman put some language in to protect homeowners, and Corps interpreted it one way, which was exact opposite of what we put into the bill. But under President Trump and Adam Tell, which is the Undersecretary for the Army Corps, they have redetermined what that looks like and come up with new guidance for Table Rock. And so the Corps is implementing that new guidance now. So they're having public hearings, public workshops is what they're calling them, over the next couple of days. So that's what I've been working on. I know that OTO submitted a build grant letter request that we got back to you on the NN project, and City of Springfield recently sent a grant request letter for Sunshine Corridor. So if you have those, please submit those to us. There's a form that we have for you to fill out if you're requesting a support letter from our office. So just keep us updated on those if you need anything. If you submit one and don't hear back from me, ping me back just to make sure that it's on the top of our list of what we're doing, especially as it starts getting closer to your due date. So anyway, I just wanted to remind people of that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on those? All right, we'll move on to the MoDOT report, Mr. Frank.
Yes, we've been working on the STIP, and I think Sarah covered that just now. Most of you were in the meeting yesterday, so not much to say there. The 444 group is in their one-on-one meetings with the teams that are the final four for being selected for that project. So it's what they call a quiet period. We're not hearing much about it, but they're doing the one-on-one meetings with them to find out, more details about what scope would be proposing. That's it.
Questions for Frank? All right, we'll move on to committee reports and grant opportunities.
Okay, so we had one meeting of each committee, so the bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee, the DPEC, met in January. We discussed what Sarah mentioned already, with the bicycle facility and trail map, for use for our long range plan update. We also heard from different jurisdictions on the ADA improvement efforts, kind of focused on ADA and transition plans and what different jurisdictions are doing, including MoDOT, Ozark, Republic, City of Springfield. Local reporting board for transit, we didn't have a quorum, but we still reviewed with the members present the application of CU Transit for 5310 funding, which will then go to the boards for approval. Projects basically improvements or expand ADA accessibility to public transportation, which kind of meets one of our main goals of the transit coordination plan. And then we also kind of started the update of the transit coordination plan, looking into demographics in our public outreach. And at the traffic incident management subcommittee, we, as normal, reviewed some incidents and then discussed the need for the control and recovery incentive program, if there's a need for regional state. That would be it.
On the grant front, we currently have opened the Flashing School Zone Beacon Program. This application closes on March 1st. This is something that the OTO has out there for to award, and so it's 20% match, and it's open to local governments, school districts, or schools. And David is hosting a virtual office hour on February 23rd. If you're interested in attending, that information is all out there on our website. The next round of ODOT cost share applications are opening up. So if you have a project you're considering a cost share for with MoDOT, get in contact with the Southwest District Office by April 7th. The application will be due on July 7th. The Surrey State Parks, they currently have their Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership Program, or ROLOP. Its minimum is $300,000. Its maximum amount is $15 million. So that is a significant federal parks grant opportunity. Its deadline is March 15th. And one caveat to this grant is that it serves underserved communities, and you have to have a population of 25,000 or more. So some of the smaller jurisdictions would not be able to apply. And then, as was mentioned, the Better Utilizing Investments to Leverage Development build is due this Tuesday. And the city of Springfield is applying for $25 million of build funds for the Sunshine Street from Kansas Expressway to Glenstone Avenue. The city of Republic is applying for which one of OTO's top priorities, which is the $24.5 million for Highway MM from I-44 to Mill Street. In addition, Republic, I think, is still planning on putting in two others, one for the Heinz ZZ intersection, which is $7 million request, and then a master transportation plan of $400,000. We just became aware of those. It missed the deadline for the tip certification, but thank you.
All right. Any questions on that stuff? All right, we'll move on to new business. So item A, major. Oh, we still do the federal fund status update. Sorry, go ahead. Thank you. My mind's slipped on to the next lesson.
Okay, so we are still in the negative as far as year-to-date obligations go, but we do have a couple of things pending that'll put us on the correct side of zero. We can bring our thermometer back at that point. There are also several more projects that have obligations that are really, really close. So if you go down to the graph at the bottom, you see a little bump in the monthly obligations. That's what that's showing, is that we're anticipating that those will be able to go really quickly once some agreements are signed and some obligations come through. Also, we have scheduled a Buy America training that's going to be here on March 2nd. invites have gone out, but if for some reason you didn't get one, just let me know. And MoDOT's gonna come and talk to us about some of those requirements. And we also have a right-of-way training at the library center on April 22nd. And so just let me know if you guys need to attend either of those. Or if you have any questions.
So now we'll move on to new business. First item up for new business, item A, major thoroughfare plan variance request.
Yes, and this is a revised agenda item. We do have two separate requests, and we will request actually that the motions be made separately as well. So the first variance request that we received was for a driveway on Fremont, which is a primary arterial, and so our commercial driveway spacing requirements are for 330 feet right in, right out on the our design standards. In this particular case, it's been reviewed that the that for site distance purposes, to have the driveway be located closer to this neighborhood entrance as opposed to kind of splitting the fence, just to maintain that site distance. This is a driveway request that went before the Ozark Special Road District. They asked that OTO weigh in through our major thoroughfare variance process. And so that is why this item is for us today. Sir, are there any questions on this one? I know we've got some representatives here today. If anyone has any specific questions.
Just curious, next one. So the Ozark Special Road District issues the permit or permission for this. Is the decision of this group, well, the OTO board, is that what binds that road district? Is it just advisory? What's the idea behind that?
So Ozark Special Road District has adopted both the city of Ozark and OTO's design standards as that's what they reference. And so when we get a request that comes through, we're asked to review the request or the proposal to see if it meets OTO and city of Ozark's design standards. In this case, it did. And so we brought that to those ORD commissioners' attention. And they asked to have it brought for OTO to request variance.
Okay.
And so then the second variance that we received was for proposed development in Ozark on Route NN, which is also a primary arterial. In this case, they are looking for a right in, right out driveway, which would align with the traffic supply across the streets. There was previously an easement for the back access that is somewhat blocked and limited, and additional easements through other cross access, I guess that's not been achieved, and so the request is just for that right in, right out. Again, on primary arterials, we're looking at 330 feet center to center. With these two roads here, it that would be why we need the variance. And so we also, yes, if anyone has any questions on that, we can. So we are looking for two separate variances. The first one would be for the variance on Fremont Road. The second one, there is a little bit of additional coordination required, including our recommendation. I think there's some requirements with some other things maybe to work through on that. And so basically we would have that recommendation that would go along with that property while they finish working through any other, I guess, parts of that they would need to figure out. So that second motion is slightly different in just making that variance recommendation subject to working through all those additional processes.
I have a question. Is this common? I don't think I've seen this before. I've been here a long time.
It's been a while since we've had one. A lot of
you know, we do occasionally get, especially if it's kind of in a tight place where maybe it doesn't fully meet. And it's kind of up to each jurisdiction on, you know, how they want to enforce those design standards that they adopt. And so, we've always been, you know, willing to weigh in and provide that for the design standards.
So if you decide not to, now we already know this. What happens? They,
Yeah, so if the committee decides not to approve the request, I'll take that back to the road commissioners. I think they would essentially decide not to allow the variance either. If the OTO, if OTO decides to approve it, then I think they would allow it.
So they're gonna vote over this, however OTO votes.
Well, they have already, the commission has already, I guess, decided or passed, I don't know exactly what they did at their last commissioner meeting, but they have basically said, if if OTO approves it, then they can allow. So this will be the, I guess this is the final stop that would decide if they're gonna allow.
so I guess my question is this will be a upcoming future expectation of deciding things?
I think it's gonna be kind of depending on the communities and how they're gonna do that. We do encourage all of our communities to adopt our standards, and so then, you know, when they are working with those standards, that's where they come back to OTO. Sarah, I don't know if you want to weigh in on the process long term or.
Yeah, I don't know if the county has ever asked for, like, if the Green County has, I know Nixa has. I know we processed one for Springfield, I haven't cataloged them, I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, so really, like she said, it just depends on your adopted standards and processes that you have in place.
If I may, could you elaborate on the access from the rear of the property? Being blocked or
Yeah,
whatever,
so-
I don't know,
Kind of, let's go to the application, because it really kind of talks through it, so they had a plat that put a 30-foot access easement on the rear of the property. When the Dollar General was developed, their landscape and HVAC basically approaches that easement. And so it's no longer accessible, I guess, without additional recourse for that, and then, they've sought access through the front, parking lots, but they have not been looking at that from Dollar General for right this. So, they do have, you know, some rear access, but it's not as big, I guess, so they're looking for that additional certification.
And to be clear, from an OTO standpoint, we're making a recommendation ultimately, and then goes on to VODOT to follow their process.
Absolutely, and I will be the first to say that I don't think that we fully understand what a process would look like on MoDOT's side, or if it's even possible. Just that, there are obviously some limitations here that we felt like warranted a review, at least by the board, to make a recommendation, and I didn't feel 100% confident making a recommendation at all without this variance and the review first, even though, yes, we, on a MoDOT road, we would not issue a driveway permit, that's not our role at all.
Yes, we did deny the driveway here, and we are in the appeals process now. We just started it. So I was gonna share some time of voting, but I'm gonna abstain because I don't think it looked right for me to take a position either way and resume the outcome of that appeals process. In addition, we have another Waffle House with an access issue that's an appeal right now.
Really?
So we have, it's outside OTO, so we have to think about consistency there as well, so.
Any further discussion on these items?
I was hoping Owen would be here. They're the ones that approached us about this. And they assumed that this was the appropriate process, but we actually, sorry, Sarah, had them reach out and say this is beyond us. We knew that they were working with MoDOT as well. I believe the spacing provided right out is about 330 feet. And I think currently this is about 289, if I remember reading everything correctly. But one of our main concerns was just they could flip the site. However, if they flip the site to provide more spacing, it wouldn't line up with that access to, used to be Oceans. I think it's Farm and Home now. So that's kind of why, I didn't mean to dump our troubles on you. I just wanted to get opinions from you all. And they've expressed that Waffle House is, I don't know if they're doing this at the other location, but they've expressed that Waffle House is very adamant about getting this right in, right out. So they're just following the process.
Will the right in, right out be media controlled, or is it just gonna be a hard barrier there, or is it just gonna be a right in, right out with the island, like the non?
Yeah, I think at this job, it's just a poor job because there's no center median there at this time.
And, I mean, that opens up access to all 3 lots. There may be a traffic memo required to see the warrants the right to repair.
Like something.
If it's approved.
Yeah, makes sense.
I have another question on the Dollar General blocking the easement. I mean, as we try to implement access control, it's not helpful when that happens. Do we know what's on there?
I don't, the Dollar General was a long time ago, and I didn't really get the full history of it. None of the planning staff that's currently there, one of the public works staff that's currently there was involved at that point. So it's just one of those good old skeletons you dig up, you are gonna see.
No, I wasn't involved with that one, I remember either, but it's also strange that we have kind of the stubbed out dry parking lots that are in front. Not where the easement is. So,
And why they didn't build all the way to the property line on the O'Reilly side.
It looks like you said, like it was set up for a cross access season. I couldn't get the history out of anyone just because nobody's there.
All right, last call for discussion.
One other question. If the vote is approved, is to approve the recommend. Would it include a comment that this is not a final determination? This is.
Yeah, that's-
it's a vote out.
Yeah, that's what we were trying to do with the motion. We may not have done it exactly, but that was our intent.
yes, it's the concern I have too, is that approval here, somebody, because these are going to private sector. This plan was meant to be a local government type of thing, and so I wouldn't want developers thinking, well, I'm approved now. We've added another layer of approval to a driveway that has no binding.
Yeah, the only comment I would take is we do this a lot, and I understand the process of this, but from the city's perspective, I would rather leave this in the hands of the agency who controls that route, because it sets kind of an odd precedence if we approve this and then MoDOT says you can't have that, or knowing how easement access rights work there, if this becomes a legal thing. I'm not saying that the physicality or what it, personally, I don't really have any problem with the proposed driveway. It's just the process of us getting involved in that because of how reactively there. That's my only comment of doing this. So that's the only reason I think on the city's end, we would probably either abstain or vote no on this, whatever way that would be more appetite for the committee. And that's not to say we don't support it. I just
I
tend to know how reactive these things are and would rather not have the city's vote be called into question just because of our body, how we represent things on these kind of same way MoDOT does every day. So I mean, I'd rather not set a precedence by our vote being in here. So I think we'll probably just abstain.
That was the reason my question to you, Derek, was, I think as our special commissioners need to have the final say, regardless of what this group says.
Yeah, so from our perspective, we made the recommendation to them not to approve it. And that was how the OSRD commissioners voted. When Mr. Estes and CGW attended the commissioner hearing, they were requesting a variance. And because the road district relies on OTO standards and the city of Ozarks and Christian County standards, They don't have, OSRD itself does not have a variance process, and so they said, if you want a variance, here's the process by which we're trying to put the standards to. And they just want to make sure that obviously, you know, as a region, we're being consistent as far as how we're applying things and the standards and everything. And so that's why they originally denied the request. But we also understand that there are circumstances that maybe, might warrant a variance.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, because we're talking about two different items here, we're kind of bouncing back and forth. We were on Waffle House, now we're back over on Fremont. The Fremont one, in terms of just the municipality, we were asked to grant easement through Venice Avenue, which is subdivision to the east. And for the uses, and Kyle can speak more to the uses, but for the uses that they were proposing in terms of agricultural and equipment and all those things, the city couldn't get behind forcing them through a single family residential development. So it seemed much more logical to go the Fremont route, and then that went through all the other processes.
But I'm in agreement with you that our vote be better cast no versus abstain. Because I guess I don't want to set a precedent, because this is a body.
I can see both ways. I mean, on our end, I hate to say no, because I do see more in the actual physical variance. I think it's probably the right thing to do, but from an engineering standpoint, but from an organizational standpoint, I don't know that I would really want to weigh in on it. So I would probably say we would probably, I don't know, Scott, I would say we probably,
Can I
yeah,
just,
sure.
so I think that often elected officials are not 100% understanding all the technicalities of site distance or access management. And I think that the original thinking behind this process was as a technical body focused on transportation issues more technically than an elected board, that whether it's advice, recommendation, or because none of us can grant we cannot grant a variance. We're granting a variance to our standards to be granted by the city, county, MoDOT, whomever. And never really, I guess, I'm sorry that it's confusing to grant one and say that that stands, but maybe we should make the motion subject to approval of, the jurisdiction involved. But I do think it helps, and I'll use Nixa for an example, because we've done this before where, we tell, here's our standards and here's why, because we're trying to, get traffic flowing through our arterials in the region. And the more access we have, the more speeds are reduced and the more crashes. And that's why we have these standards. However, as we all know, from especially those of us with planning degrees, is the law is you cannot universally restrict everything. You have to have an appeal process and apply some common sense. And so that's why you see this variance process, because we can't have something that does not allow for, a different interpretation or specific scenarios. And I do think if you vote yes, you're not voting that that's final, you're voting we recommend and agree that it's a good idea to vary from our standard design standards for this unique situation, subject to the city, county, MoDOT, special road district making that final call.
So that has a possible, it's a possible approach. I think my concern is that we're not really doing that. We're changing your long range plan, which is what we have to use to comply to get it to. So if we're doing more like an advisory thing, talking about our state, like these are the standards of OTO, but based on this group's technical expertise, we think it would be okay to vary from these standards in this situation. At the request of the agency if needed, a variance body.
And I think we
that.
could.
But there are other organizations like city who would have their own process.
I think I would be comfortable saying it was okay if we say we move to recommend that it's reasonable to consider the variance based on the approving body's authority, that it's a reasonable request. We're not saying it should be approved, but it's reasonable to consider this, or it's unreasonable is really the litmus test that we're asking, right?
But we do have, this is the way the process is lined up now, which I hear what you're saying. And like I said, we're amending everything now. So if we want a different process going forward, that sounds good, right? That sounds good, but that's not the process that we have right now. So we can, but And I will very seriously look at how we can make that different going forward. But I don't want to say this is gonna set precedents, because I'll tell you, we're working on it by the fall. We can have something maybe that we can all agree on that works differently.
Brett, just a comment on, from my end, I guess my concern or my reservation in this process is, I feel like we're asking, to make a technical recommendation for a site that I'm not familiar with either of these locations. I don't know the history of what's been planted. I don't know what the easement situation is. We haven't researched any of the legalities of it. I don't know. I haven't looked at the site distance. I'm not familiar with the speeds. There's so many aspects that if we were making that determination as an individual local public agency, we would want to visit that site. We would want to take measurements. We would want to do due diligence to know that we had considered all those factors. And I know we've got a summary report, but there's too many factors in here that I would not be comfortable making a recommendation to either, because I don't know those histories and I'm not familiar enough with. Certainly, I think everyone in this room is more than capable of making a recommendation given sufficient, but I'm not comfortable doing that on these. I don't know enough about these in my opinion, but that's my reservation. I feel like if we're saying that all we're really approving is authority to vary from OTO's principal standards, I feel like that's a given to some extent. I mean, I think we've all adopted the standards in principle, but we recognize every agency has variance processes that allow those agencies to vary from those standards. That's why those processes exist internally.
So could
This
we,
seems unusual to me.
could we maybe distinguish between the two requests? Because we have a specific request from the Ozark Special Road District.
Yeah.
That may be a little bit different than the NN one, right? So I would ask, since we have a specific request from that body to make a determination, maybe we could do that. Could you drive it on Google real quick? How wide is it, guys? Like, it's a narrow road that basically in Christian County, where we have Cassie Farms on one side and Fremont Hill subdivision, basically on the other side. There's a slight hill where they want to put the driveway.
Thank you, they could find Chad.
Well, Kirk Tree is close right there.
One time we were driving to the road, he would tag us, go to my house, and here his car, state car.
This is the
He's like, I.
connection that we're measuring. That would be slightly to that.
Which just a comment, the reason that we're not lining up across from Brim Hills is, it's hard to tell in a picture, but they're probably a 6-foot drop. Like on the Brim Hills entrance. There where it goes down, and so you just keep seeing the air goes there, we on site and you appreciate that. That's not vegetation. So we try to push to the south, close to the property, to make more sense, and had an actual crest of the hill where you could actually have sight distance and actually see what's happening.
I will tell you guys from the road district's perspective, as Ozark continues to grow, Fremont is increasing in traffic and, you know, their concern was just, you know, ultimately the Fremont corridor, eventually someday it's gonna be, you know, substantial improvement. And they don't want to end up in a situation like Barney Street or whatever, where there's a driveway every 20 feet and they're trying to make sure that they're planning for the future. And so we're looking at it from a strictly objective perspective. Does it meet the requirements or does it not? And in this case, it didn't. I went out there to look with Mr. Estes to see, you know, what made the most sense. There were site distance issues of locations. And so from our perspective, our recommendation to the road district commissioners was that it did not make sense to grant a driveway on Fremont, at least not in the locations they were requesting. And then, like I said, CDW and Mr. Estes showed to the commissioners meeting, and they were requesting a variance that the road district commissioners were not comfortable requesting, and that's why they referred us to this body.
Well, I guess the question I have in knowing how these things are tentative, they want to move forward, is there a way to? I'm asking questions, I have no idea. Is there a way to move this forward to where they get a decision, but we don't bind? Like, I know, like, if this is the only, I'm asking if this is the only avenue for a decision and we don't make a decision, yes or no, does it kill? I mean, not kill, but how do you impact us where the developments can move forward with an answer or do something? I don't know if there's a way to do that, because I agree with Adam, it's hard to make the decision. Like I said, I would be comfortable maybe recommending it basing, you know, or not recommending based on certain criteria, or having some sort of language in the variance that gives it a little more ambiguity, but I don't know what that would look like. So I guess we have to decide to either make a motion, move forward. We've talked about this a lot. So I'm going to look to Sarah or others to make a recommendation for how we make a motion, or who makes the motion and moves forward.
So like Adam, I heard you say I didn't have a chance to look at. Do you want to go look at it? Do you want to postpone the decision for a week and have an e-meeting? I mean, does that help us at all?
Time for that.
I know, is everyone to drive down there?
I have a question. Is the variance is it because the spacing is the big issue? Or
Yes.
is the site distance that's the issue?
Well, there's both issues.
What is the site distance?
They cannot meet both site distance and spacing requirements.
And is the question which one we should favor, whether it's a site distance requirement versus the spacing?
Well, we were of the opinion that site is a safety thing, and so we didn't feel like we could vary from that. Spacing is a requirement that was set with OTO standards, so we felt like that would be the avenue for a variance.
So it does meet site distance now with this proposal.
This location meets site distance, but it does not meet spacing.
Did you measure that, or did you measure that,
CJW.
or CDW, sorry, yeah, okay.
Do we have the numbers for them?
Is that on there?
Is it on there? Sorry.
Yeah, that's all.
Oh, it's on theirs, okay.
We don't have what the site distance would be.
Yeah, it says it right
Is
there.
that this one? Okay.
There's no other access to this property?
Well, property's, how many acres?
60 acres,
60 acres, so
and it doesn't have access.
it does not currently have access to the road now. There are other locations we discussed about location that might make more sense for a driveway, but based on what they're trying to do with their development, we looked at a spot that was much further to the south. And it was just too far away from what they wanted to do, and I think there may be site distance issues there as well, I'm not sure.
The thing that bothers me about this is your commissioners have already made a decision, right?
And I want to be clear, the road district commissioners are not requesting the driveway access. All they're requesting is this body's recommendation for a variance or not. And they did vote at the last commissioner meeting that they would agree with whatever this body decided.
So they're asking, are we okay with varying
From the OTOs.
the driveway in order to better meet the site distance?
They're just asking for a variance from the OTO spacing requirements to allow a driveway location that they're requesting.
Basically, last OSRD meeting, they were literally, we're fine with it if OTO signed off.
So, because that's confusing to me as well. Then you'd have to give them one, and you'd have to determine whether you're gonna do it by business versus. I know this isn't our jurisdiction either, that's also why I think it's that, but just thinking.
That was why we originally had referred them to the city of Ozark with the access onto, what was it? The Chura?
Yeah,
Just because we felt like that was the lesser of evils, but the city of Ozark weighed in and they didn't feel like that was appropriate either. And so it went back to us again, back to
it's Venice Avenue, it is a highly, single family residential. My understanding is you got cattle trailers and whatnot coming through there, and it just didn't seem to make sense.
Delivery trucks.
Delivery trucks, right?
And we have a traffic problem out there. I mean, we have police having to direct traffic for events, and having additional access will really help with that too.
Yeah.
So, because I don't know, you guys said most of you haven't been down there, but if you go down there on an event day, we're backed up onto CC and it's an issue.
If we're separating the issues, I think the request for the variance on spacing on Fremont. I would make a motion to support that, given all the data that CJW has presented and OSRD basically saying, hey, take it to OTO. And that's what we've done. But that's me knowing that road. I know it's not my jurisdiction, that's not the city of Ozark's jurisdiction, but knowing what the intent is and the spacing. I could get behind that. And Sarah makes a great point. When events are out there. It's busy.
Can I throw some? Here's what I see, is word gets out. Some developer comes to the planning zone, Great County, and like the answer I got. I'm gonna bring it to you. And I just, this is an attitude. I wouldn't.
Yeah, I think the motion should, whatever the motion is, it should be subject to the governing body approval. So, yeah, so they can say, yeah, the OTO approved it, but it's still subject to the planning board, the county commission, the city council.
I would also add, if we do that, to add that it has to have a professional engineer site plan approved attached to it, from the engineering standpoint. But I think for a motion consideration, if I was gonna bring it forward, we would say that and say, we're just motioning to allow a variance from the spacing as approved by Ozark Road, as it's approved by a professional engineer, and that would be pretty gray, but it might give them the authority to do what they need. And that way, I feel like from our end, that wouldn't be binding on, like, it's not, I got completely understanding Adam said without the technicality of it and what the specifics of it, and like what it could be up to them. But I mean, it's not unreasonable for me to say if those two things were done, that they could vary from the standard. That's what we would do in our organizations, is we would review that stuff and vary from it, and it's up to us to make that decision. I think they're just asking if they can. Which I agree with Sarah, I think we need to change this process moving forward with some practicality in it, but that's where I would. That's where I would be from I think our standpoint, and I guess at this point we need to decide to make a motion, table it, or whatever we need to do. We talked about it for 20
Got a
minutes.
motion?
I think my motion would, I think you make a great point, Brett. I think the motion would also include that it's contingent upon the jurisdiction having authority and subject to a site plan provided by a professional engineer.
Yeah, if I understand, I mean, that's really the question before us is, does that local public agency have the authority to vary from this design standard or not? I would be totally comfortable saying, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm
You have the
saying.
authority, but I don't want to make a recommendation, yes or no, whether you do or don't vary. Just to say, I don't have a problem conceding that every local public agency should have the authority to vary from that design standard if and when constraints require that variance. Says I assume that was sort of implied anyway, but.
Everyone treats it differently.
Yeah. Is that a motion?
Is that a second?
I would make that motion that the OTO our recommendation would be that we grant authority to vary from the OTO design standards as it applies to these driveway access points.
Just a point of order though, does Jeremy officially have a motion on the floor?
Well, I can,
Or-
so I think we're saying the same thing
I'm still working through it.
a little differently, so it still gets us to where we want to go. I can pull my motion from the table if that's all right, and then we can go with Adam, so his name's on it. I mean, it still accomplishes what we want to accomplish, so.
And would it still be subject to the same condition that Brett had indicated?
I think if they're asking for a technical representation, I think we're waiving that to a professional engineer and their authority, and then whatever you need to do. And that would kind of protect us from saying, we're not the technical authority here. It's the engineer that studied that and the governing body that's gonna have the details. And if you both agree that's okay, knock yourself out. I mean, that's not technical, but I think if we could make a motion
I
along
was
those.
scratched to knock yourself out, but I'd keep the rest.
Yeah. So I never heard an official motion. So if Jeremy or Adam wants to make one and we can work on it.
Try again, okay. Motion.
We're talking about the first variance. Pretty much.
Can we not address, can we do these both as?
Yeah, we wanted to separate.
It's the- Yeah, I mean, separate, but they make the same motion. So,
I don't know. I don't know what motion is.
Would it be as simple as granting the governing authority the right to vary from the OTO technical standards?
What does our rules say about the process of what is the recommendation looking for? I mean, we have a various process, what is it asking us of us?
I mean, basically, we take the request and we make a recommendation. Very. The detail of that process.
And then the outcome of this is that you're in compliance with the OTO's plan, right? So it's usually like when we get a variance, a local, you get a building permit or you get a development approval. Here you're in agreement with the plan, which means what?
I mean, every granted or not granted, it has to go back to the city, county, whomever, right? It does not hold the authority for a permit, or it's just really a recommendation. And I mean, many of you, Frank especially, have been here so long that you've seen the evolution of this through what, 25 years now. And so, what may have worked when we started may not be working now, and that's why we're, willing to look at it, but right now, like I said, I think we need to give a path forward with, especially on the first one, where that's what their motion is, that's what they want to see, and so. So we got a motion? I think.
Who made the motion?
Adam.
What's my motion? I move to recommend that the public agency be given authority to vary from these OTO design standards. And I don't know what the additional clause is here, but
In relation to this development?
I guess our recommendation, yes, our recommendation would be what, that apply that engineering practices in carrying out their variance process. I don't know. So very good.
Okay, we'll say grant authority to vary from OTO design standards related to the Fremont Road request and apply best engineering practice.
Is that
it?
that's my best, yeah.
That sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
I,
All opposed? All right, abstaining? Right.
Did you abstain? You abstain?
Yeah. Okay, man, that's stressful. People say good job. All right, so now we're gonna move on to NN and decide whether we're going to table that or make a motion on that one. I will say from our point, we will abstain from this one because we feel like this is more a policy decision than an engineering decision here. So, I mean, from the city standpoint, this is, when I look at this site, this is less engineering and more policy based on the easement. So I wouldn't feel comfortable making a recommendation on this.
And I got to say again. So, I know I sent the wrong message and yes, I sent the wrong message.
Yeah, that's just the last one to me from a technical standpoint, looking at it. So you got to give somebody an access to site distance. There's engineering involved. To me, this just, my comments are, this is strictly policy. I understand the need for it. I understand the need to be there, but this is a policy decision because if there is an access easement there and there is access to the back of this. So this can be handled differently than this. And I think it has another opportunity. And I would hate to get into politics of when we actually make people use an easement, don't, because that's a private property matter. So I don't feel like that's my take on this.
I agree with you, Brad. I think we were just in a position where.
I get you.
Hey, let's take this to the TPC. But throughout the email string and everything, we've always reinforced MoDOT jurisdiction. This is what it's gonna come down to. So I completely agree with you. I wish Owen was here to kind of represent and I'm not saying, saying anything disparaging about that. I'm just saying.
Well, we failed to communicate the meeting date to them, so I will take it.
okay, he's unavailable, but you did reach out.
Is there anything in city regulation that requires OTO, like Ozark Special needed input from OTO for their decision making? Does the city need anything site plan wise?
Anytime that we do something that is in direct conflict with the major thoroughfare plan or any of the spacing requirements, that's when we reach out to OTO. Even knowing that you all have the ultimate jurisdiction. And maybe that's what's gonna change moving forward. But it feels like we gotta go through whichever bureaucracy to make sure that we're not in direct conflict with the MTP. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I guess what I'm gonna ask, to get a building permit from the city of Ozark, do you have to approve that right away, how next in addition to us approving how?
What will happen is in our software, we're not allowed to approve it until ODOT approves.
I think right now, MoDOT has said no, and they're asking us how we go around that.
Sort of initiate the appeals process.
And that's fair enough. I mean, we were just trying to follow the process.
Yeah. I just want to make sure you didn't need, like Ozark Special, insisting this board to move forward on your end.
No, it's sitting in queue in our software, and until you make your decision, ours is kind of new at this point, so.
If MoDOT approves it, would you then come to the OTO since it's in conflict? Or
I think at that point, if the big dog approves it, MoDOT approves it, we would probably go along with your recommendation. Because you said that they're going through the appropriate appeals process and all that. Our biggest thing was right in, right out, obviously. But typically we follow ODOT guidance, in this case, OTO guidance as well.
I just figured we need the variance, if we decide to widen it and we have all these not compliant driveways. And that's where you need the variance, because you can't match the plan then. And we, we don't always do that, and part of the issue is we don't know the design or verbiage, we don't know the detail. I'll never picture these being issued by private sector. That's-
Considering this one's gonna be reviewed by, for a body that does have a technical review team, I think I would just lean to make a motion to let MoDOT review it and make the decision, and we'll back that up would be my, because I understand the road district and the process there, but from this perspective, this is MoDOT's road, so they have definitely have the technical team to review it, so I don't know, can I make a motion?
Yeah,
I would motion that we just allow MoDOT to make this decision and support that decision with whatever they decide that's not agreed currently.
could maybe be that, that we would like to defer any decision until we hear back from MoDOT, and if we just want to table it, and if they want to bring it back after MoDOT's decision, then we can look at it then. But really, that sounds like that's the information that you want.
Does that get you?
I would support that.
So my motion will be we defer this, table this until MoDOT comes back with a decision for the allowable access.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Mark Webb, anybody abstaining?
I'll vote for that.
Who made the motion? Who made the second? Sorry. Okay.
Mark, your tab is getting smaller and smaller. All right, let's move on to new business item B. The UPWP Amendment 1, tab 5.
We gotta go back one,
We
or
do?
no, or I'm out over. You're good.
You're good.
Golly, I can't.
That's what I'm showing.
Get the minutes for,
Agenda says.
or is the agenda backwards for the tabs?
Oh, I don't know. Yes,
That's cool.
go ahead.
Yeah, this wasn't my fault. It says it right here in front of me. Okay.
Some good news. So we have Christian County was awarded a traffic engineering assistant program grant. It's called TEEP. So it was for a countywide sign inventory, and they were awarded $12,000. This process is a little bit of administrative because in order for them to get the grant funding, they have to add it to our Unified Planning Work Program. So basically, that's what I've done. You'll see that our UPWP is in there. I have redlined where I've added it throughout the document to be in compliance with the planning program. And so I've added it to our task 11, which basically is outside agencies receiving funds. They won't flow through our office. But basically, it's very simple, $12,000 grant, $3,000 local match they will be getting. This was a request that came down from MoDOT Central Planning for us to add it to our UPWP. So anyway, congratulations to Michigan County, and we'll be moving it on to the board if you guys agree.
So we're looking for a motion to approve. Is there a motion statement in here for us?
I'm going to recommend one for the UPWP.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Now we're gonna move to the tip amendment. It's item C on my new business. Tip amendment number 4.
That's navigable. MoDOT has requested 2 items be added to the tip. These are both for scoping. One is for route the bridge improvement over Piercing Creek. So, we got further out on East Sunshine. And then the other one is for, I-44 and 65 interchange.
Any questions on that or discussion?
Yeah, the route D is basically for curb blockouts in that bridge. And then for I-44/65, it's looking at. We have to do this work at Kearney and 65, and those ramps are so close to 44 and 65 is to let us look a little bit at the impacts to the 44/65 interchange and figure out what needs to be done there.
We're looking for a motion. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, thanks, Sam. All right, let's go to item D, administrative modification number 3.
This item does not require, any, action, but we do per our, public participation plan, provide, information to the board, regarding administrative changes to the tip. So, a lot of this is more just kind of moving some funding around. The first one is for the Finley River Trail Western Expansion Phase 1. And it's moving funding from construction to engineering, with no changes for the overall program amount. And then, the next two where, some slight changes to the project's total program amount, but the first one's for the I-40 safety project. There was some, double counted funds, so that got removed right away. And then, North Orchard Road improvements, that project came in, higher than what had originally been obligated when they went out for bid. So they requested to add $35,000 federal and relevant local money for that. So we were able to make those changes administratively. I didn't answer any questions, there's no action required.
Seeing no questions, we will move on to the next item. The UPWP subcommittee.
Yeah, so every year, as our transportation organization prepares a unified planning work program, that's basically so that we can receive our federal grant funds to fund our operations and different activities that we do. So, every year I, ask nicely for someone to serve on our committee. The only requirement is that you can make one Teams meeting and stay awake through the meeting. It's the way the work program. I would like to involve, Central Planning Office, MoDOT, probably invite Amanda, to be on that since she's the one who ultimately helps approve the program. And I'll probably invite, our federal partner as well, Cicely, if she would like to be involved with that. But I would like 2 or 3 other volunteers.
No meeting.
Or maybe make recommendation.
Let's see, hand raise. Andy, Scott. Need one more? You can ball and hold somebody from your organization since they're not here.
I think that'd be fine, as long as someone from the thought, and they're able to. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, do we need to approve that?
Yes.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the subcommittee members as noted. Or I'll make the motion to approve the subcommittee. All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Now we'll move on to the TIP subcommittee.
Okay, well, I was nice for letting Debbie, see her volunteers first, but I know you were all just waiting volunteer for this one, so I thought Adam wanted. But it's kind of the same thing, we just need a handful of volunteers. We'll go over the tip. I can do that. I can do that tomorrow. Go to the report, right, follow help. Oh, he looked at me, it was not. If we could get one more, that would be great.
Okay, motion
I'll make that motion.
to
Point these members to the subcommittee, TIP subcommittee.
second. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, we'll go to other business. We'll go around the room with any transportation updates from the group. Do they have any updates? You have one. That says for a transportation grant.
We have a grant agreement for access for
Yay!
a transportation master plan. Still needs to go through the execution process, but we do have a grant agreement.
So we will be working with OTO and the region on that and having our partners involved in that to try to put together as much as we can as a regional transportation plan to help support each other through that. So not that it's going to be a vast entire OTO region technical plan, but we want to consider those needs. So we'll be reaching out for people to review that and be a part of that process as we move forward. Any other updates?
I will, I should mention too, this is the first meeting since, so we did receive an award, an SS4A award for improvements on South Campbell Avenue as well. Just trying to think, we've had a meeting in between, but I don't think we have. So, we've yet to enter into the grant agreement phase on that, but, happy to make some improvements on South Campbell.
And it was noted that we're taking down the bridge on South Campbell there. That is not true. We're replacing it. So we got out there, which we're extremely excited about to get that grant to replace that bridge, because that was going to be a definite contention point if we did not get that moving forward, because the bridge has got a few years left, but it moves one direction either way, we're going to take it down. So it's one of those things we were very excited to have. So we'll move on to the next item. Any technical planning committee things we need to review? Tab 8, what do we do with that?
Read some articles if you know.
Note there's some stuff in tab 8 you can take a look at. Also, before you get out of here, fill this form out and sign the conflict of interest form. Give that to somebody. Give it to. Okay. Okay. We need a motion to adjourn then. All right, all in favor?